View from the Gutters, episode 24. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On today's episode, we discuss G.I. Joe Cobra, and, to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 3737.
No.
Please.
No, I'm not.
Please.
I am going to say pork chop sandwiches, though.
Okay, well, we're rolling, so
Okay.
you say what you want.
Yo, Joe!
Can you sing the Cobra Law theme song?
Oh, God, no. I can't sing any of that. This was a long time ago for me.
I'm disappointed.
The
This is my
USA
disappointed face.
Cartoon Express, man. G.I. Joe.
Oh, my God. I love the Cartoon Express, and then I hated it because they canceled it, and then they brought it back, and it was shitty.
It was shitty, yes.
I was into Cartoon Express, way back in the day before
Totally.
it got crap.
Thundar, G.I. Joe. It's like all the best fucking cartoons.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
You're too young for it.
Yes, you might have been.
It was
before
like
birth.
it was like Toonami, but in the late 80s.
It's yeah.
Yeah, I was too young for that.
I want to say 87, 88.
Good evening and welcome to View from the Gutters. I'm your host, Joe Preti.
I'm Andrew Chard.
Cade Reynolds.
And I'm Tobiah Panshin.
We're talking about G.I. Joe today.
We are talking about G.I. Joe Cobra today, which is not your. Oh my God! I guess in some cases it's not your father's G.I. Joe.
It's not your
anybody's.
grandfather's G.I. Joe.
It's your
either.
grandfather's G.I. Joe. That's
It's not
storming
your
the beach.
grandfather's.
It is because they're storming the beach at Normandy, and
That doesn't happen.
that doesn't happen in this. No, it doesn't. That's not.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is like a.
This is modern.
Rebooted of. This is the third. Or the second reboot of G.I. Joe, so the third series of G.I. Joe.
This
Like
all
these-
those.
They brought back the first series
Right.
just recently.
Yeah. The Devil's Due Press reboot happened, and then IDW bought it, and they did a reboot of it. Then also.
And this is so this is their second.
No, this is IDW's first
Okay.
first G.I. Joe series. This was part of the first wave of that first series, and then Devil's Due Press, DDP, had it before that, and then before that it was the Marvel
Right,
Comics.
and IDW has brought back the Marvel
Yep.
continuity with Larry Hama, with the original numbering,
Right.
along with the Transformers Marvel comic. Same concept, but with
Yeah.
Simon Furman.
Yeah.
I've read the Transformers, and that is incredibly good. If you haven't read that, and you read the old Marvel series, you definitely need to pick that up.
I heard that the G.I. Joe is just as good as it used to be. So.
I have not heard anything negative about it. I don't know that I've heard a lot about it, but it's
Yeah.
been on my list to check out for a while.
Not being a huge G.I. Joe fan, I don't know. I never read the comics when I was a kid. Never watched the TV show. I had the knockoff action figures.
I would
rubber
actually
band ones.
I would kind of recommend going back and checking out the old Marvel series.
Yeah.
It got kind of crappy in the last I want to say 2 or 3 years. Once it hits the 90s, because it was canceled in 91 or 92. But the first, I'm gonna say 70, 80 issues are really good.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about that stuff. I just
It's worth going back for.
It's
Yeah.
certainly not. It's certainly not the G.I. Joe I grew up with, which was the cartoon. Which you don't question certain things when you're a kid, and you grow up and Cobra Troopers incidentally had their weapons master was descendant from the weapons master of the stormtroopers because they couldn't hit shit either.
Yeah.
So it's nice
And-
little
Yeah.
So I watched
continuity there.
I watched both the cartoon and the comic book. Actually, for both G.I. Joe and Transformers, those were the two comic books that my brother and I got on a regular basis when we were kids. And the comic book, they use real bullets. People really die.
Oh yeah.
The shit is constantly hitting the fan in a way that it never ever. There is not a continuity in the sense that, that there is a continuity, the way that the cartoon didn't have one.
Right.
They have the pit, which is their base, and Cobra storms it and completely fucking destroys it. And then 30, 40 issues later, after they've moved the pit and built a new one, Cobra finds it again. And guess what? They fucking roll it a second time. It was really well done for something that was ostensibly a kid's comic book.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't do that. I mean, you're immediately limited
Well, I mean, these were the days of the Comics Code Authority.
Right,
There were
right.
there were things that you couldn't do.
Yours were
Yeah,
limited.
but Larry Hama was a soldier. He was in Vietnam, I'm pretty sure. So
Larry Hama's a great writer in general.
Yeah,
like
but
his,
he also had a lot of military knowledge.
Yeah.
Loves
so.
ninjas.
he wrote he had a
Ninjas.
great run on Wolverine. He did the Sabretooth limited series with both of those with Mark Texeira, one of my favorite pencilers of that era. My thing, Warren Ellis, very recently, within the last 5 years or so, did a webisode, a G.I. Joe series that was cut up into webisodes, and that was fucking great.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
And the first,
Yeah, it's like Retaliation.
it was something like that, and it was like, in the first episode, Cobra Commander's like addressing us, and he's just like, he's like, what the fuck is you guys are all shit. You guys all suck. You've all let me down so many times. That's great.
Let me just make this one point to sell this old G.I. Joe before we get to the new G.I. Joe. At one point, like, Cobra has been completely fucked over, and Cobra Commander is on the run with his son Billy. I think it was Billy.
What's Billy Commander?
And he goes to one of his old Crimson Guardsmen, whose name is Fred, because all of his Crimson Guardsmen are named Fred, and they've all had plastic surgery to look exactly the same. And he goes to Fred, and Fred has this like secret battle armor that he was developing in secret. And so he's gonna get Fred's help, and they're gonna like put Cobra back together. And Fred shoots him in the back and leaves him in a shallow grave. Then takes the battle armor and impersonates Cobra Commander for like 30 issues.
Wow.
And it's like not even the same guy, and nobody knows. And it's this like huge secret that he's constantly trying to keep on the down low.
That's
because
awesome.
you know if anybody finds him, he's gonna end up with a bullet in his face.
Yeah.
That's
like-
how good this comic was.
Yeah, I like I never read G.I. Joe, but I've always been interested in like the Cobra side of it, like the villains. You know, that's what's interesting.
At
I
one point,
think.
there's a Cobra civil war on Cobra Island, and they're all killing each other. And the Joes are like, should we do something about this?
Clearly
I don't know.
Spoilers, later in this series, stuff that Chuckles does triggers a Cobra civil war in the reboot. So I didn't know that had happened once before. That's interesting. But yeah, so this is the first like G.I. Joe series that I've really ever read, I think. Was G.I. Joe Cobra.
This just was my intro to G.I. Joe, actually.
Yeah.
I read Max Brooks was at Emerald City Comic Con a couple of years ago, and I bought Hearts and Minds from him, and I read that, and I thought that was really cool. I loved G.I. Joe is one of the things that I always loved the idea of, but I could only watch the cartoon for so long before I was like, you reach a point where you realize nothing's really at stake, and so you lose interest, and so
It's like watching old Transformers too.
yeah, exactly. You realize,
God,
you know,
don't
it's like,
ever do that.
please don't.
Yeah.
Please, if you grew up with like one of the things I've avoided doing is watching Transformers.
Don't go
because,
back and
no, you
rewatch
don't want
the
to.
shows
The
you
only
watched
thing
as a
I want to
kid.
watch nowadays is Silverhawks.
Yeah.
Well, Silverhawks was pretty good.
Silverhawks was pretty good. And I think
mean, it had its limitations, but
But it
I
also
mean,
had
it had the Green Power Ranger in it. Because how could you not love that?
well, and it also had like a space hawk cowboy dude.
Bluegrass.
Yeah.
He had a cowboy hat in space.
He had a cowboy hat in space.
And
if
they
that's
had
not the height
the
of
copper-
fucking awesome.
The Copper Kid was from the planet of the mimes.
Yep.
Mimes are a species that have their own
And
planet.
so,
Wow.
so wings of silver, nerves of steel.
Actually,
know.
I really liked the third series that nobody ever remembers, Tiger Hawk.
Tiger Sharks. No, I remember that.
Okay.
I never really got into that. Silverhawks was definitely my joint.
Yeah, I only saw it like a few times, but I really dug it because they jumped into a pool when they turned into Tiger Sharks.
Yeah.
Wow, they're like Animorphs.
Yeah.
But
Only,
before,
like, way
it was
better.
like,
Yeah,
Because I've never seen Animorphs, so I assume it's bad.
that's from my childhood.
yeah, I know,
Animorphs, the books.
Somebody I know is reading through. Oh, my friend Maggie is reading through
I have
all
a
the
bunch of
Animorphs
those
books.
books.
But
Yeah, I did it not that long ago. Well, like probably like 4 years ago. But they're so short. They take like less than an hour to read
Yeah,
through.
right.
That it's like really easy to just bust them out when you're on the toilet.
yeah, that's what I like to bust things out
Yeah.
on the toilet.
Okay, so Joe, what did you actually think about this? Since this is your first introduction to G.I. Joe.
It was,
I,
and
I guess I'm the only person who's been really familiar
Yeah.
with the G.I. Joe comic before this, so I'm interested to see what your guys' opinion was of it in contrast to mine.
I liked it overall. I didn't love it, and I wanted to. I think that there was. It just felt like one of the things we talk about a lot is it just felt too dark to me. I just wish it was like very much like I'm alone behind enemy lines, and I'm like committed, and I'm gonna do all these horrible things because that's the job. And I'm kind of like, I would think I would have liked him better if there was some flippancy there. It wasn't just like bitter, like Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon 1, kind of like, yeah, I'm fucking crazy. I felt like I wanted Chuckles to have a couple more facets to his personality. There's also a pretty egregious instance of girlfriend in the fridge in this, I feel. But overall, I liked it. The thing that I like the most about it is that it made me interested in that world. So why I may not have, this is probably not going to go down as one of my top books, it definitely made me want to read more about like the stories they're setting up and the Joe universe that they're planning. It definitely piqued my interest in that. So I think in that way it was hugely successful. And then, it's one of those things where like it's entirely possible that because you're just getting this small glimpse of a character, there can kind of be more going on. But, I liked it. And I definitely think it's an interesting introduction into that G.I. Joe world. So I definitely want to know more about it.
What do you think, Cade?
Well, Joe said that he likes it and he wanted to love it. I actually did love it. I went in with no experience with G.I. Joe whatsoever. I expected something very, for teen readers, and this was very adult. And it was absolutely not what I was expecting. I loved the storyline. I felt that a lot of the shit that goes on in it was pretty realistic. It felt to me like this could actually happen, and it felt like I was reading Chuckles' diary, as in, this is really bad shit that happened to me. And it was just absolutely not what I was expecting. I love a good spy story, and this one, it did kind of blow me away. I do want to read more of it.
Yeah,
I did not like the one shot though.
Oh, the Tomax Zaymont.
Yeah,
one shot,
that it didn't feel good to me. But starting out just with number 1 with Chuckles, it, like right away, it just makes you interested, and I really liked it.
What about you, Chard?
I love it. I recommended it, so it's kind of
It's my joint.
It's my joint. Yeah, I really like it. I don't know. Maybe I just bought into it too much, but for me, it's like Chuckles is, although he like puts on the airs of being like, oh, I'm just gonna kind of be flipping in meetings and whatever, and I'm the casual Joe. I wear Hawaiian shirts and make jokes. He takes his job really seriously, and I think he is. He's really committed to the Joe operation at first, and then by the time he doesn't want to be a part of it anymore, he realizes it's way too late and he has nowhere to go. One of the first things you see him do once it's like, you're undercover, go kid, is he has to burn his U.S. passport. It's like, well, now he's never going home. And then, like, as the series goes on, he gets less and less contact with the people back home, and he's like, realizing, oh, cool, I just blew up, $2 billion. I just devastated essentially a small country's economy. Then I blew up a train and killed like a bunch of innocent people. He's done these horrible things, and he loses, the bomb explodes and he loses his radio in his head. He can't communicate with anyone anymore. They capture his girlfriend, Jinx, which is the fridging that Joe's talking about. Although I really disagree that's fridging.
I actually kind of agree with Joe. I mean, her death serves no purpose and she accomplishes nothing except to give Chuckles more resolve. Like, her death is all about him and how it affects him.
Right. I mean, she's barely a character in the story, and I guess that's a problem, I guess. But there are no other characters in the story, really.
And that's kind of why I feel like she's been put in the fridge, is because you see her basically at 3 times. She's introduced. They obviously have some kind of like love affair thing going on, and he offs her.
He shoots her in the face.
And then like that, and that's it. And so I'm like, It's very much like she has no character development. She's there simply so that he can do one more horrible act.
No one else but... this book was called G.I. Joe Cobra, but really it's G.I. Joe Chuckles.
Yeah.
Like, this book is not about anybody else. There are no other characters in this book.
And I really want that to be the name on the
book. Well, I think they just couldn't have...
G.I. Joe Chuckles, and you read it and you'd be like...
Well, yeah. I just think they couldn't... I feel like they wanted to call it that. Yeah. They really did. But they just... couldn't, no one would buy it, so they called it Cobra.
Yeah, it's Cobra in the way that Chuckles is discovering.
Right.
This is the first contact.
I think it's the one thing that I thought was really funny about this was that they were basically taking the jokey Smurf of G.I. Joe and turning him into this major hard ass.
Yeah.
Well, I think he just, he becomes that hard-ass throughout the story. He's just okay, doing this mission, time to burn my passport, time to go do this thing. And then by the time he has no way to get home, he's like, I'm a horrible bastard, I can never go back. I'm just gonna... Because at the end, he stops carrying out the mission. He's like, look, I don't know who the big boss is. Look, I got to X, I got to Zaymot, figured out that they were twins. And, but there's a boss above him, obviously. We know that as readers because we know the Cobra Commander's there and that there are more members of Cobra. But he just kind of is like, okay, that's all I wanted to know. And then at the end of the story, he's like, well, I'm going to get revenge. And if you keep reading, his story gets more interesting.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I did not care for this comic at all. I wouldn't say that I hated it, but I didn't like it.
It's a genre piece.
I started out comparing this to Queen and Country, and at no point did I feel that this was either equal to or superior to that comic. I feel like, I've read Queen and Country, and I feel like the guy who wrote this has too. And he was trying to write his own Queen and Country using these characters, and he just is not as good a writer as Greg Rucka, which is easy to do. A lot of people aren't as good a writer as Greg Rucka. But it felt like weak sauce to me. Just the entire time, I felt like I was reading something that was watered down. Well, I wasn't particularly interested in Chuckles as a character. He never really won me over as a person. He doesn't develop.
I wanted
a lot of the things that happen seem arbitrary in that they advance his story, but he doesn't really do anything to earn that advancement. He just kind of follows along with what everybody tells him to do. And the page of the story keeps turning, and events go past him, and he's never really involved.
But that is his story, he is oh, I'm on this mission. Let's just see what happens tomorrow. Let's see what happens tomorrow. He doesn't take action. He doesn't become a character, really, until the end of the story. And, that's his redeeming moment, is when he's oh, I know. I have to do shit now. I can't just let stuff happen to me because it means I'll kill my girlfriend. It means I'll kill innocent people. I can't just stand by and be passive anymore.
But I think that you don't... and I definitely understand that that's the thing. It's I read it and I feel like this character needs to be John McClane. And he's written like Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in End of Days. There's just no emotional connection with him because... I see what the author is trying to do, but what I really want is this guy to be he gets promoted because of the size of his fucking balls, not because he just follows orders. Yeah. And that's what I really want him to be no, I'm not going to fucking do that.
Yeah.
And then be because this, and then, it's he starts listing off these valid reasons why it's not a good idea or whatever, and then he buys some time for something.
Well, he's not Leonardo DiCaprio in The Departed. That character is probably the epitome of the undercover spy character, right? And this guy is not that.
No,
he isn't really good at being undercover, and that's kind of the story.
The other thing that I really didn't buy was the whole reveal at the end. Major spoilers, just in case, that Tomax and Zaymot basically knew that he was a plant for months, and they were just fucking with him. There are any number of ways that this story could have gone that it didn't, that would have completely fucked them in the ass. But they let this go on, seemingly because they knew they had plot protection, that he wasn't going to figure this out.
Yeah. I also it
felt sloppy to me.
Well, it's also, Tomax and Zaymot are manipulators. They're liars. And so, when they tell him that, did they really know? Did they really know that he was a plant forever? Because they would have done something about it. They're not stupid.
Right.
And it's their own arrogance that gets them in trouble, too, which is another it's a big part of Tomax and Zaymot's story in the following issues, is, their arrogance got them in trouble. Now they're separated. They were strong together, and that's what I got out of the backup.
And maybe things really pick up later on and totally redeem this story.
Yeah.
But I didn't like it. I also didn't like the fact that all of the female characters were non-entities, and by all of them I mean all 2 of them.
Yeah, well,
There was Jinx, who had no characterization except she was fucking Chuckles, and lo and behold, there was the Baroness.
And she's a better spy than Chuckles.
No, she's more of a hard ass than he is.
Well, she's considerably better than he is because she gets
that's
in and
true.
out of like more difficult situations, and like she
Yeah.
gets caught, and Chuckles' first reaction is, "Oh, should have glad that wasn't me." Like you realize like how passive and
But
I don't know. I found that really
the other
good.
female character, the Baroness, who looks a hell of a lot like Jinx also has very little character except she's down for the D. Like,
Yeah,
her entire purpose in that
Well, and
story
she's-
is to sleep with Chuckles and advance his character.
And
And she
she's
has
selling
no
them.
identity of her own.
and ostensibly to keep an eye on Chuckles too. Like,
Well, she's the treacherous woman, right?
She
It's
becomes
like-
she makes him head of her security because she wants to keep tabs on him.
Yeah,
right?
and I mean, I think the women in this are very tropish, which is unfortunate, but also...
Well, I mean, she doesn't even rise to the
par
level
for
of
the-
bad Bond girl.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean...
And I think that's a problem is like you're examining characters that aren't really characters, right? Like
Well,
every
they should be.
well, should they be? Because it's
Yes.
just it's a story about Chuckles only.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
don't
think that's a good story.
I mean, I don't necessarily... It's told from Chuckles' point of view,
Exactly.
but that doesn't mean that the characterizations can be... Like, that doesn't excuse sloppy characterization.
Well, it does, and it does in a way that it's like Chuckles doesn't know what they're thinking. He doesn't know what they're doing when he's not there. So
No.
all you get to see as a reader is what Chuckles sees.
Right.
And you already know he's pretty perceptive because that first panel breakdown where he's like, oh, he smells like French cigarettes. His right hand is broken. That's my first vantage point. They're trying to tell you like, oh, he picks up on all this stuff.
Yeah.
He's also not an expert at picking up on things because he makes a lot of mistakes. Like he's still kind of a rookie at being undercover. And these characters you don't get any insight into them because Chuckles doesn't get any insight into them.
But I think that story has been done in a hell of a lot better. I think Hawkeye did it better.
I think you can give snapshots of characters and give them better characters. Like, I think if the story was twice as long, you would have got... Cause
well,
my
it's
big
it's 4 times as long as this. Like there is so much more to it.
I feel like my big problem with my big problem with the Jinx thing and the Baroness, like I understand why the Baroness is there, and I don't really mind that so much, even though I feel like she's tropish, but I also feel like that's a limitation of the genre in general. My problem with Jinx is that that's supposed to be a powerful moment in the book, and I did not care about it.
Oh, I felt like it was pretty powerful.
I kind of did as well.
yeah.
I do have to admit that I'm comparing this to the G.I. Joe that I've already read before that.
Right.
And in that story, the Baroness is an incredibly strong character.
She gets
Like, she has a lot of characterization.
Yeah.
She has strong motives. She takes proactive action. Like, she's independent of other people.
I also feel like that this is the first 2 chapters of a Bond book. It's the dirty work that they kind of gloss over, well, completely gloss over in the movies. But in the books, they do take a few chapters to set it up. None of the characters in the first few chapters are usually the major players. The girls that he meets in the beginning don't matter at all. But I mean, it's even that stuff in a Bond book that draws me in and then gets me to the end. So, I mean, I guess that's why I loved it, is because it drew me in, but it's by no means finished.
Yeah. I also feel like comparing it to Queen and Country and other like spy fiction like maybe isn't a really
Well,
good
that's a little
idea
unfair.
because it's
That is
not
a little unfair because Queen and Country was done specifically to showcase how to do a spy story right. Like
Well,
in
for
the
one-
intro to the first one, he's like, "Fuck James Bond, fuck all this MI6 bullshit. Like this is what being a
Right.
spy would be like." And I think that Rucka's trying to do a completely different thing than what this is trying to do, which
Right.
is set up a universe.
Well, and also like that story is about an agency. It's about like a powerhouse of intelligence. And this is about not that. This is about the opposite of that, which is like, what do you do when you're just one guy? Like, how are you a spy of one man?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. I feel like this story could have been done a lot better. Like, it's a
yeah,
good
sure.
outline of a story. The broad strokes are pretty good. but it falls down on the specifics really hard, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's definitely if this is like an ongoing thing and Chuckles continues to do things afterwards, I think there's definitely a chance for him to become more fleshed out.
Yeah, the second series is about him going after Cobra from the outside, so he becomes an active player basically for the first time in his life in the second series, which is something that was like really needed in his story because he is so passive in this story.
And I think the mistake that is made in this one is that they open and he's like, I don't remember what my name is this week. You know, there's like. It's like he's definitely portrayed in the beginning of this book as like a hard ass. This is a guy that spends a lot of time in deep cover and he knows what the fuck he's doing in deep cover. And then all of a sudden he just kind of seems like the wind goes out of him and he's just like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to blow up this train. I'm going to like fucking like economically destroy this small country. And it just like that. I feel like there's a tone shift.
Well, I disagree because I feel like that first line, I don't remember what my name is this week, sets him up as, like, not a very good spy. Because if you were good at what you're doing, like, you would remember exactly who you are. You would remember your backstory all the time. You would be on top of your shit. And he's not on top of his stuff. Like, that's what sets him up at the beginning of the book. Is like, I forgot what my cover is supposed to be. Whoops. Like, and then he's reminded, and then he, like, gets out of it. He's kind of just, like, bumbling along through the story. Like, I don't feel the tone shift in his character until after he kills Jinx, and he's like, well, now I gotta be active for the first time. But he does it really stupidly. Like, he makes shitty decisions because it's the first time he's ever had to do anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, and if that's, I suppose that if that's the point of the story, then that makes it a different kind of story. You know, that's, and maybe, it's the kind of thing where you need to like read later ones to kind of come back and be like, oh, okay, that's what he's doing. I mean, I still think I try not to be. I never like saying, oh, well, this isn't. I mean, this compared to this is not much good, or like so and so did it better, because that's not necessarily fair. Like they're dealing with an established continuity. They have established characters that they need to do something with to make.
They were jettisoning the continuity. Starting fresh. That was kind of the whole point.
Well, but I mean, in the general sense, you have this.
You still have to.
You have this top secret.
Yeah, you have to.
They're starting from the same premise.
You have to be like fairly accurate with some of the characters, or I think you'd lose your fan base like more than you need to.
I mean, you're dealing with an established universe here. Like maybe the continuity, maybe you're jettisoning the continuity, but. People know who the Joes are. People know who Cobra is. There are major players that you have to put in there. And so, like, I think that, and it's like, that's why I'm kind of like, the story, even though the story wasn't that thrilling to me, it accomplished its purpose, which was to get me interested in that world and reading more about the Joes. Like, I totally want to know what's going on back at fucking Joe HQ now that when fucking Chuckles is doing his thing. Like, I want to read... I'm kind of like, okay, well, you know, this is the G.I. Joe I wanted when I was a kid. This is like shit getting fucked up and people blowing up and killing people. Like, I want to see the Joes do that.
Yeah, and which is funny because I have the exact opposite reaction where, like, I've never read another G.I. Joe book because I'm like, this is what I wanted. That's good enough. Like, I just want, like, I want a story about a spy who's, like, all right at doing what he does. And, you know, like, I find that interesting... I find the way that his career, quote unquote, with Cobra progresses as an interesting story. In the same way that, like, I love watching The Departed and Infernal Affairs to watch, like, how that undercover, how that gets set up. You know, like, I like the setup. It's like it's kind of the opposite of a detective story, but in the same vein of pulpy, two-fisted action kind of way.
Yeah.
I guess it just really left me feeling flat, and it wasn't helped by the fact that the art was, I don't want to say bad, but unambitious. There were
I like the art a lot.
Like, I kind of like the design sense of it, but the panel layouts were very
they're super
uninteresting.
They're super traditional.
Yeah, like super duper traditional. The faces seemed weird to me in a lot of times. Like, sometimes they were on model and they were really good, and other times it was just completely fucking random what face somebody was gonna get. It just, like, And, it's not as bad as other things I've seen. It's not Rob Liefeld bad.
No, I actually really like the sketchy
seems like
looseness of the stuff.
The guy who drew it, Costa?
No, he was the co-writer. It's Fuso.
Fuso. I'm looking at the front cover as
Yeah.
just flipping through it. Basically put no extra effort into this besides just cranking out the pages. And I mean, maybe that's unfair to him. And
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Fuso,
don't.
if I'm wronging you here, please let me know and I will apologize. But
Well, I mean, yeah, we don't know.
It seems very like work for hire. Like, let's just get this out.
It's not a name I recognize, and also, this was pretty early on in the G.I. Joe lifespan at IDW, so I'm sure there was a lot of pressure to put the books out on time.
And I'm sure that they were not, hiring the most expensive talent.
Yeah, IDW.
They were going with the people that they could get that would do it for the price that they were willing to pay to get this book out. So, maybe it gets a lot better later on.
I think IDW...
I was unenthused.
I think they do a good job of, like, pairing the right artist for the task. So, like, going, oh, this is a gritty kind of dark story. Let's get a sketchy kind of dark colored book. Like, maybe wasn't the best choice, but it was definitely, like, I feel like that was their intention. I don't know. I also feel like... who are this? Crystal Gage? Yeah, Crystal Gage has gone on to write a lot of other stuff that I really enjoyed. I believe he took over Supergirl after Greg Rucka. So, I think he does write female characters really well. I think the critique of, like, oh, his female characters aren't really that interesting is fair, but I also feel like there's no other interesting character in this story, period. Yeah. So it's not just his female characters that are taking a beating. It's like, can you name another male character in the book?
Well, there's
Tomax and Zamox.
Samox and
there's Simon.
Yeah, but they're
like,
such cardboard
there's the
cutouts.
Other thugs who are basically like generic cardboard cutout thugs. Like,
I feel like most other characters are so one-dimensional.
I feel like you could have been a lot more ambitious with this project.
Yeah,
I agree.
And they weren't. And I mean, I really like a lot of the stuff that IDW is doing now. Yeah. Maybe compared to what they were doing in 2008.
And who knows how much editorial wouldn't let them do because it is an existing property.
And I will say that
I
was really impressed with their mention of ortolan, because that is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it is incredibly illegal because it is a protected species, and they do actually eat it with the napkins over their heads because it is supposed to be so decadent and so hedonist, it's like the ultimate in culinary hedonism, and so you're hiding your head from God because it's so, like, the act is so shameful.
Really?
Anthony,
the whole, like, cutting your gums with the bones thing.
No, that's actually how they do it.
All right.
Except you don't like, there's a Zamon or Talos who's eating it like this, and that's not it. You put the whole thing in your mouth.
he bites the head off it. But no, if you want to read a good description of it, Anthony Bourdain wrote a pretty intense.
Raw. Is it in medium raw? Or
I don't remember what it's in.
It might be in.
I've only read two of his
books. The nasty bits. It's in one of them.
I think it's either in medium raw or...
It's in one of his two most recent ones. The nasty bits or medium raw, where he talks about going to an undisclosed location with undisclosed people and eating ortolan. And
it's a pretty intense
once
description.
In a lifetime, yeah. And I mean, clearly it has been read because it's pretty accurate. So, I'm sorry, Cade, you were going to...
Oh, I was just going to talk about the characters that were introduced in this one. There was one, the new graduate from Caltech that appears in the final issue, who was working for Chuckles. When I was reading that, I really wanted, when the robots are blowing up the thing and Chuckles, and, he's like, oh, boss, I don't know what's happening, etc. I really wanted Chuckles to, get him out of there, send him to the U.S., be like, find this guy, the head of G.I. Joe, and go work for him.
Right. I just feel like Chuckles isn't really that efficient or intelligent. Yeah.
They didn't even give him a backup way of contacting them in a super duper emergency.
Well, he had Jinx and he had drop boxes, but
no, he didn't use them.
Well, no.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I think he just, he
I
also doesn't want to go back to Joe. Like, that's the other part at the end of the story is he's like, I can never go back after what I've done. So, at some point,
I can't imagine how that's true.
See, and that kind of... I feel like... one of the things that kind of turned me off is that I feel like he wants sympathy that I don't necessarily think he earned. Like, I just need the character to be more fleshed out.
Yeah.
At no point do I feel like, oh shit, man. Like, because I know nothing about him before he's just thrown in there. And for most of the time, he's just kind of like doing his thing. And so at the end, I really want to be like, whoa, man, that's like incredibly fucked. Like, how do you sleep at night? But I can't because I never really feel like I know him.
You know what guy reminds me of? I can't remember the character's name, but Fear Agent.
Oh.
Like, he's just kind of a huge dick to everyone.
Heath Houston?
Yeah.
And then as the story progresses, you find out why that is.
Right.
And you start to feel for him.
Right.
And I never felt for Chuckles. Like,
well, this is...
And I mean, it's only 4 issues.
Yeah, it's so short.
If we had read the rest of it, it's entirely possible that we will get that feeling. And I'd like to. Like, I definitely want to know more about him.
Well, also, a lot of time passes in this book. Like, he's out training terrorists for, like, who knows how long. Like, we don't know how long he's been out there. But because it all takes place in 4 issues, for us, it's over in a second. And we're like, oh, that was a really short story.
The Last Airbender syndrome, where they have a lot to cram in there, and they don't necessarily have enough time to really get in it. So, Sokka becomes a sword master in a fucking, 2 days.
Yeah, some shit gets pushed under the rug because you just don't have time.
I mean, there's definitely a way they could have done it better, but...
Yeah.
I would never recommend to somebody that this be the thing that they go out and buy first.
Right.
Oh, no. I mean, if
there
someone...
There are so many other things, even within this genre, that I think are better.
Well, wouldn't you want somebody to read the things that are not better?
No.
Just give them straight to the top.
You take the things that are not better and you burn them. And you read the good things by the light of the flames of the unworthy.
Not everything, because some things are made better by the fact that they're not, the best.
Yeah, I also feel like I don't know a lot of other books in this genre. For comics, anyway.
Yeah, I think the spy genre is definitely...
And the other spy book that everybody throws around is Queen and Country, which is a book I don't like. So...
It's a book I've never read.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
I was actually
really,
really wanting to recommend them even this week, but I didn't want to recommend 2 spy books in a row.
Yeah.
So, future podcast listener, one day I will recommend this.
And I will probably vote for it.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
All right. So
do you guys want to do Rex?
Let's do recommendations. You guys want me to go first?
Yeah, go first.
No, let's have Cade go first.
Okay.
Let's switch things up.
Okay. For this week, well, I'm going to go on this kick because most of the books I have left are superhero books, and there are a number of them I want to talk about and or haven't read yet. And so the one that I brought this week has been recommended on the show before, but it's the one that kind of ties indie stuff into the superhero genre, and that is Powers, Who Killed Retro Girl by Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Avon Oeming. And this was before Bendis joined Marvel, and it was pretty indie at the time, I think.
Yeah, it was originally published by Image.
And it's a mature reader's title too. So I mean, he's not.
Yeah, it's essentially a non-superhero story in the world of superheroes. It's one of the famous superheroes, Retro Girl, is kind of put on the pedestal like Princess Diana, and it was kind of it's a homicide investigation centered around the death of a superhero by this tough old-time cop and his brand new partner, kind of like many buddy cop movies or novels. It's just detective fiction in the world of superheroes. I really liked it. I didn't like it once it went over to Marvel but like the first 6 or 7 trades were really good.
7. 7 is when he kind of jumps off the deep end.
But yeah, that's my recommendation. Powers Who Killed Retro Girl.
Cool.
All right.
All right, I'm going to actually break a streak for myself, I guess, in that I have actually brought a superhero book.
Oh.
Not only that, I brought a DC book.
Uh-oh.
I brought Batgirl, The Lesson, by Brian Q. Miller, Dustin Gwynn, and Pierre Perez. This is actually the back half of Brian Miller's run on Batgirl right before the New 52 reboot. So this is kind of the second half of Stephanie Brown's arc. It picks up really well with like a big recap of everything that's happened, so it's a really good jumping on point. For those of you who don't know who Stephanie Brown is, basically she was the son of a minor villain named, I think,
daughter.
like the daughter. The daughter of a minor villain named like the
There's some
Quizzler.
shenanigans that go on.
Something like that. She calls herself the Spoiler. She fucks with everybedy's shit. She becomes Tim Drake's girlfriend. Eventually, she becomes Batgirl. She becomes Robin. Man, what the hell is this word? She becomes Robin. She apparently dies. Then they bring her back later, and she becomes Batgirl. And kind of the first half of her arc is her learning how to be Batgirl and adjusting to the new responsibilities that are on her and being an independent superhero and not being a fuck-up. And so the second half is basically her being Batgirl and having adventures and solving mysteries, and she interacts with Damian, Batman's son.
And Supergirl.
And has lots of interesting adventures. And there's no real big overarching plot. I mean, there is kind of a meta plot that develops, but there's no real big special thing that happens. There's no status quos that are altered. It's just good, solid superhero comic book writing.
Yeah.
The art is really nice. Miller does a really good job of making her an interesting, compelling character.
Yeah.
It's one of the few modern DC books that I just really unambiguously like.
And also...
Joe is making faces at me.
Do you not have it? Do you have it?
No, I have it. It's right here.
Look at it.
It's under Sorry, it was in my lap, and my lap is under the table because I'm in a short chair.
I wanted to say that Nguyen is pronounced win.
I thought it was Gwyn.
No, it's win.
Win.
Yeah,
Sorry.
It's the Vietnamese.
I know it is, and I know that I always say it wrong. I thought there was a little bit of a G accent at the beginning.
Yeah, I know. I've always heard it win.
Okay, win.
Yeah, this is back when Batgirl was worth reading before
Before the New 52.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Also,
actually, this is one of the things that made me... The cancellation of this book is what first soured me on New 52 before I found out that it was terrible.
Well,
on its own
my
rights.
god. Who's writing Batgirl? What's her name?
Gail Simone.
I tried reading the New 52 Batgirl twice. And the second time I got maybe 2 episodes in, and it is so awfully written. It's just, Barbara is just, it's like, I understand you want to do the whole unsure of yourself, because apparently DC wants its cake and eat it too, right? They want to have Barbara Gordon have been in a wheelchair at one point, but then they want her to be Batgirl again. Because all they're interested in doing is just fucking everything to hell and doing nothing good. And they're achieving that. They just canceled 2 of their best books.
Well, if you want to see Barbara Gordon be an interesting character, Batgirl, the Brian Q. Miller Batgirl, is a great place to see it because she's Oracle and she's assisting Stephanie Brown in becoming the new Batgirl.
Not only that, but Wendy something or other of Marvin and Wendy, who were kind of background characters for a long time. She is also in this book, and she is also in a wheelchair, and she actually becomes a character called Proxy, who is Oracle's apprentice, and she's learning to do what Barbara Gordon does.
Right.
And so she's kind of mentoring both these characters at the same time.
Yeah.
And she's an incredibly interesting female
She's
character.
a fantastic character that got completely destroyed by the reboot. Well, actually, that's 3 fantastic female characters that all got destroyed by the reboot.
Everyone in this comic gets dicked over.
Yeah.
Supergirl.
Well, and Brian Q. Miller,
Damian,
who does not write for Marvel or DC anymore.
That's actually probably for the best in the long run.
I do want to make a correction.
For
I think
him,
I've said on the podcast before that the New 52, they've taken Renee Montoya and kind of fucked with her character, and they haven't. They've actually, as far as I know, killed her off completely.
Oh, nice.
So,
Yay.
yeah,
we
there's
couldn't
I
possibly
misunderstood.
have any queers or fatties or cripples. In
we
our
don't need
books, 'cause
any
the guys wouldn't
women.
like that.
Yeah,
right.
no women in the new DC.
Yeah, no fatties. They all need to, it's just, I mean, we need a bunch of unchallenging women characters so that the men don't get afraid because, they don't want to have to understand any of them women's rights stuff or anything like that.
Yeah.
I love that, like, one of the few New 52 books that was doing something positive with female characters, which was Birds of Prey, in which all the characters were wearing pants and, like, actual costumes, including Poison Ivy, who is male gaze issues up the wazoo, right? Has been canceled, as far as I know, which was I really had a lot of fun with that book. So.
Actually, if you there's a website, theouthouse.com, that has a counter. How many days has it been since DC did something stupid? Yeah. And I haven't seen it go higher than 3. And it's been up about, I want to say, a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Spoiling their own massive crossover.
I mean, it gets reset basically every other day.
That's awesome.
But, so
Yeah.
I'm sorry, rant over.
DC is just really nailing it right now.
They are,
this
home run city.
This is pre-New 52, and it's good.
Yeah.
And it's what DC should have kept doing.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, well, you got to get rid of, boring shit like this to make way for
exciting stuff like Dick Superman and a bunch of Silver Age characters that nobody wanted back. That's really important.
Yay.
We needed a Flash that's not really Barry Allen, but they call Barry Allen for some real weird reason.
Well, he was back pre-New 52, but,
Yeah,
there's so
barely.
much, there's so much
I just-
Red Hood and the Outlaws,
Oh, God, why did you have
Vomit
to bring
City. We'll
I-
talk about the New 52
we
at some
will,
point.
We will.
Joe, what did you bring?
I brought Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo teamed up on a book about the Joker called Joker, strangely enough. And this is their follow-up, which is Luthor. And it's interesting because I don't think you don't get a lot of books on Lex Luthor. You get, he's usually he's a Superman villain, so normally when any kind of interaction is going on, it's going on through Superman. So you're seeing like Luthor doing shit like he does in 52, where he kills a whole bunch of superheroes, and Luthor even in All-Star Superman, which I think is one of the best kind of depictions of Luthor, you're still kind of getting him through Superman, and this is Superman through him, which I think is really interesting. I brought it mostly because I think I wanted to hear what other people think about it, because as much as I liked it, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about it.
Yeah, I don't think it's as strong as Joker was, but for a lot of different reasons that I don't know how to put my finger on. So
yeah,
it's
and I haven't
something
read,
I want to talk.
I haven't read Joker.
Oh, you should. It's good.
But yeah, I mean, and Lee Bermejo's art is stunning.
Yeah.
It's really good, and it's just Luthor. It's Luthor like you've never seen him before. And really, as the book kind of progresses, he becomes much more familiar. But still, in the beginning, he's like, the janitor is talking to him about his son, and he's like, hey, he knows his employees' names, and he seems very personable and like approachable, and it's kind of odd. So I think it's really I enjoyed it. Even though I'm not exactly sure how I felt about it in general, about the story he was telling. But, yeah, I thought it would be a good book to bring tonight.
All right. I brought an Image book. It's called Turf, and it's written by Jonathan Ross of BBC One Show fame, and Tommy Lee Edwards. And it is a really interesting mashup book. Essentially is what I would call it. It's set in I think it's set in 1929 specifically, but in the midst of the Prohibition era. And the introduction of the story basically is a news reporter, but there are a lot of characters. But the news reporter kind of gets wind of like all this mob activity that's going on based on Prohibition stuff. They're smuggling alcohol, there's speakeasies, weird shit's going on. But very quickly you realize there's a lot of supernatural weird shit going on too, because there are vampires and aliens in this story. And so it's a mob versus vampires versus FBI versus aliens versus everybody mashup 1920s sci-fi adventure action math story. I don't know. I really like it. The art style's pretty sketchy and kind of I don't know. I would call it dense. The writing is also very dense. Something that I loved about this when I was reading it in single issues is there's a lot going on in every issue. Like, they're very packed. Like, you don't read them in the normal, 4 minutes that you read a superhero issue. Like, there's a lot of text. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. There's a lot of plot development. There's a lot of stuff happening in the book. The book's pretty dense, but I find it, really, really interesting. It's not... I don't think anything's really romanticized as far as the vampires and the aliens go. They're definitely not the vampires of Twilight or any of the romanticized vampires. They're very monstrous. They remind me a lot of kind of the underworld vampires, where there's these covens of different vampires. We're just saying one here, but this kind of family fraternity mob style stuff going on.
Right.
So it's a good comparison to the American mob. It's set in New York, so it's not the Chicago Mafia, but
Right,
New York,
right.
then the Manhattan Mafia, and
The real mafia, as I would call it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
yeah, and I really like it. I think it's a good story. It's cool. It's something weird. I don't know if a lot of people have heard about it, but it was recently. It's been, well, I don't know, not recently, but in the very first issue of whose magazine is it? Clint. The CLINT exclamation point, I think it's Mark Millar or somebody
I know what you're
does a
talking
comic
about.
book
Yeah.
magazine. This book went out of print really quickly, and Image couldn't get it back on the shelf, and so they reprinted the issues in this magazine also, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Weird.
Yeah, it was weird, but I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So that was the way that I was able to keep up on it even after it had gone out of print and was hard to find.
And is it back in print now?
Well, no, it's done. It's just this.
No, I mean, can
the
you get
single
the
issues?
hardcover?
Oh, yeah, you can get the hardcover. You can't get the single issues.
Okay.
That was going on when the single issues were coming out, before the hardcover had come out. It took a while to come out because
I see what you're saying.
was, it's done by, I'm not traditionally non-comic people, but Jonathan Ross, this is the first comic book he's written.
Right.
But he's a big comic book fan. And Tommy Lee Edwards, whose art is very detail oriented, I think takes longer to draw a book than someone who's just cranking out several issues every month. So It took a while to come out.
Cool.
All right. Okay, good. So you guys want to vote in the same order
Yeah.
Yeah, Cade, what do you want to vote?
Okay,
for?
I actually I wanted to talk a little bit about my choice. I'm gonna vote for Luthor, because one of the things is it was coming out in single issues and just finished when I got out of comics. It was the very last comic I had bought, and I didn't buy another comic for 7 years. And it was one that I really liked and have yet to this day talked to anybody about, with the exception of the title, Luthor, Man of Steel.
Well, no, this is a different one than that.
No, I looked in the front,
Is
and it says it's originally published as Luthor, Man of Steel.
Oh, weird. I thought that was a different story for some reason.
I've never heard of any of these stories.
Yeah.
I'm also going to vote for Luthor.
All right.
It looks interesting.
I thought so. When I got it at Emerald City this year.
Yeah.
So I didn't even pay full price for it.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
Well, what are you voting for, Joe?
I'm probably going to vote for Turf because I'm just... It's you pretty much have me at Mafia versus FBI. You're throwing vampires and fucking werewolves or aliens in there, and I'm kind of like...
I would actually kind of like to read Turf as well.
Yeah. It's good.
But like every week, read them all.
Yeah,
you should read them all. You should read them all.
What are you going to vote for, Andrew?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll vote for Powers.
But what would
Irrelevant.
you have voted for?
Oh, what would I have voted for? I don't know. It's a tough choice this week because I've read all three of these before, so it's hard for me. I love Batgirl.
See, I bring a superhero book to satisfy you fucking wolves, and none of you vote for it.
I love this Batgirl story immensely, but I also feel like I've kind of talked about it a lot. It would give me another excuse to talk about how much I love teen and young adult superheroes.
Yeah,
Actually, what's really funny is I just found out recently that Miller was planning a new Young Justice team before the New 52 reboot with Batgirl, Supergirl, Ms. Martian, Blue Beetle, like, and a few other people. I can't
Oh
remember
yeah,
who
he was gonna grab
man.
most of the Teen Titans
It
because they
makes
were like
me-
canceling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
it was
like,
going to be a new Teen Titan or Young
Yeah.
Justice team, but the lineup was incredible.
yeah.
And he kind of like,
Blue
he
Beetle
makes a
totally
slight
good.
reference to it at the end of Batgirl, but I desperately wish that had been a series.
Also,
Comics it
when
could've been, man.
when Batgirl teams up with the Teen Titans, it's when Damian is leading the Teen Titans, and that happens in Teen Titans, I think. And it's really interesting. Like, I love the dynamic between.
Yeah, like I really love all these young heroes that
Yeah.
they had that they've just completely flushed down the toilet.
Well, they,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
but by I've read Teen Titans, and the thing is that it's not bad. What makes it hard to read is how much better it could fucking be.
Well,
Because they choose to amp up the angst
Yeah.
like aspect and kind of throw character development out the window, which really sucks because everything you need is there.
Yeah.
Like, everything you need is there. It's just nobody. They're not using it right at all, and it's like I know Ron Mars can write better than that.
Well,
like,
I'm just also really sad because as much as Young Justice was a really good show, I feel like they really fucked up there too because they could have picked more relevant modern characters.
I cannot think of one thing I would do that would make that show better.
I would have set
was
it in a more
immaculate.
modern continuity. Like, why is
It was
Wally?
its own continuity.
But why is Wally West and Tim Drake on the same team as Connor?
because they're the best
Kent.
Robin and best Flash.
But
No,
they
it's-
don't
you
make
mean Dick
any sense.
Grayson.
Well, yeah, sorry, Dick Grayson, but they don't make
Because
any
they're compressing the
sense.
timeline
with-
because it skips 5 years ahead.
But it doesn't make any sense. They don't make any sense
Wait a
with Connor
minute.
Kurt or with
Wally
Connors.
West would have been Kid Flash at the same time Dick Grayson was.
They
Robin.
were, but Superboy wouldn't have been there. Martian Man,
Yeah,
Miss
it-
Martian would not have been there.
It's its own
Like,
continuity.
Yeah, and that's what's fucked
And-
up is because
no,
there
it's
are
fine.
better characters you could have
Why,
picked.
But
I like the
yeah.
like the fact that they actually had time, like in the series 5 years passes
I mean, you don't want to.
and you actually get to see like the changes in the heroes over those time. Like by that time, like Dick Grayson has become Nightwing. He's a different person than
Yeah.
he was when he was Robin. Like he's past that mantle.
That's
I think
fine,
if
but
the-
then
I think
don't
the
put
first thing you-
Superboy in there until later when it's relevant.
The
Like,
first thing you,
I don't think that you need to be beholden to continuity.
I don't think you
I
need
think
to
it does a
either, but I think
continuity
it would have been
reboot
better.
the right way.
I think it would have been absolutely better because the relationship that Tim Drake and Superboy have is like phenomenal. Wonder Girl and like that whole dynamic is like extremely
See, I don't
interesting.
know.
In Teen Titans, the
and
book.
see, I don't think that
right,
you have
and
to
so
redo that.
I don't
Like
think
we already
need,
had that comic.
We
don't need to
we
do it
already
again.
had that comic. You don't need to do that again. It's already been done. Like why?
But why
fuck
not
with that? Because
expand
then
on
you
those
run the
stories
risk-
because they didn't get to be completed?
Why not tell all new stories?
Yeah, I
But
mean, it can
why-
be its own thing. Like,
It's-
if the new 52 universe were the Young Justice universe, I would fucking buy every issue because
But
that would
it's-
be great.
Yeah, but they like set up for that by being like, "Oh, we're gonna do this rebooted like kids show," and then they like totally drop the ball. So
I mean-
that's fine. But Young Justice.
No. You
Young-
don't get to have the last word on this. Young Justice is great.
It's
It is
fantastic. I like
incredibly
it.
great.
I like it a lot, but it could be way better.
Well,
I
loyal
don't think that's
listener,
true.
I think you should go watch the show and
And
decide for
yeah,
yourself.
I don't
Yeah.
really think
No,
so.
listen to me.
I also.
It has like unlimited potential, and it like met 60% of that potential.
Then you must be glad that it's canceled. But
Yeah.
Greg Weisman is going to be the executive producer on the new Star Wars Rebels show. So I'm expecting that to be just as great.
I can't remember what else I was gonna say, but I think it probably rhymed with or had something to do with the fact that you're wrong.
That's great that you guys just like love this unabashedly for no reason and cannot back up any of your arguments. That's absolutely perfect.
What is your
Okay,
argument
so, like,
besides
your
it's not
argument-
exactly
your-
like this comic book?
No, I'm just saying
Okay,
like
your
there's more.
argument
My
is
argument
that
is there's
there
more
were-
potential,
it
and
could
you
be
guys
better.
are
I
blind.
don't think it is.
so-
I think it lived up to every ounce of potential that
No,
it had.
it has more
Okay,
potential.
so hold on a second. By definition, everything has more potential.
Right.
Anything
So
can
I'm
be
correct.
much better.
Thank you, Joe.
Anyway,
The thing is that they told the best story. They told the story they wanted to tell in the best way possible.
yeah.
So they met their level for potential. Could it have been better? Yeah. The fucking TV show could have given you orgasm.
Well, no, I'm
alright?
just saying, like,
Could it-
they
it's like,
didn't
there's
meet
a fucking
all-
1,000 ways it could have been better. Yes, but the stories they wanted
But they
to tell,
limited themselves
they did it in a-
unnecessarily.
I don't
But they're
think
not
that-
telling the
how did
stories
they
you want to
limit
tell.
themselves?
There's no
They
difference.
limited themselves by like looking back on a lot of continuity and like just completely
completely
overlooking
There's no
it.
erasing
difference
it.
between you saying that and and Toby saying that he didn't like G.I. Joe Cobra because it wasn't Queen and Country. There's no difference between those two
There is
arguments.
a very slight difference between that, because my argument is not that, like, oh, it's not like a different thing that I like. There's more that could have been done there, and you handcuffed yourself unnecessarily.
No, I
so.
think that they did what they wanted to do. I think if they
disagree
had
in
wanted to do
strongest
that thing,
possible
then they would
terms.
have done that thing. I don't think they wanted to. I think they wanted to expose people to a wide variety of these characters.
But what's important, and I know this is like completely irrelevant now that we've rebooted all of DC's continuity, but what's important about the DC Universe and what mattered about the DC Universe was legacy. Like, there is stuff that came before, there's stuff that's happening now, and there's stuff that's going to happen in the future, and all of that is important for reasons X, Y, and Z. It's the reasons why, like, James Robinson was able to bring back the JLA or the JSA and make a legacy of characters again, is because it's important to the DC Universe. It's important that somebody's mantle gets passed on to somebody else, and that matters for these reasons. If you have all of your universes, comic book, cartoon, television show, and movies existing in that same continuity, and I'm not trying to be like a continuity Nazi here, but if you have them existing in the same order that those things happened in, you have the ability to grow your universe larger, which is to take a television series and make a television series like Gotham Central and have it build on stuff that came before in a different medium. Like, you've linked multiple mediums together. It's something that no comic book company has been able to do before. And that's why that's important. And that's why saying, oh, they didn't follow the continuity, man, who gives a fuck, it limits
the thing
those
is
characters.
that they were respectful of the continuity without being beholden to it. Which is to say that they were able
weren't
to take things...
respectful to the continuity.
Yes, they were.
No, because the continuity didn't exist.
I don't think you want to. I think you're aiming for a completely different. Like, if your cartoon gets people interested in comic books, then right the fuck on. You've done something well. But continuity is what's killing modern comics.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
It's why
really? So
fucking
let's erase the continuity of a universe we have and have a giant reboot, and everything will be perfect.
No, that's not
No,
the thing.
what's
The problem
wrong
the
with
New
modern
52
comics is bad writing, Joe, and bad editorial.
Because they're
The
fucking...
New 52 fucking proves that.
The New 52, one of the reasons
There's
the New
no
52
continuity in the New 52. It should be fucking perfect, Joe.
No.
And
There
it's
is.
not.
There is. There's a huge amount. They've kept all of fucking Batman's continuity. That's one of the big problems with it.
Okay. This
Like,
episode ended like 5 minutes ago. So before we go, just so that no one is confused, on the next episode we're going to be doing the long run, where we're going to be talking about the entire span of Transmetropolitan, all
we're gonna
10
be arguing
trades,
about this again.
all 60 issues. The episode after that, we're going to come back and talk about Luthor.
Yep.
Not Luthor, the BBC channel, the BBC
Which
miniseries,
everyone should watch.
which I've heard is really good. But
Phenomenal.
Luthor, the comic book.
So if you haven't read Transmetropolitan, you have 2 weeks. Get it done. Listen to that episode, and then read Luthor a month from today.
Yeah.
And watch Young Justice and tell us why we're wrong individually. I mean, not me,
Well,
because
some
clearly
of
I'm
us.
never wrong. But
Yeah.
One of us.
Sure, guys.
right.
Yep, you nailed it. It's perfect.
it's not perfect.
Couldn't have been.
It's as good
Oh,
as
so it's not perfect. So it could have been better. Fuck you.
I've never
Episode's
been
over.
perfect.
Episode's goddamn over, Joe. Bye.